Awesome. Looks like we are live. Happy Thursday, everyone. It's Thursday, December 6th, 2018. If you're watching this live, I guess it could still be Thursday, December 16th if you're watching the replay, and it could be a whole bunch of other days. But anyways, I'm your host for the next little bit, Jesse Brisendine here, and why I'm getting this shared on a couple of my different pages. I would love for you to invite your friends, your family to join in, whoever you think might benefit from tonight's message or today's message. And just give me 1 minute to do this. And while I do this, be sure to say hello. Let me know where you're logging in from. Hey, Heather, good to see you on here. And I'm just going to do a couple quick shares. Maria, hey, Maria, how are you? I just got one more to do really fast, and then I think we'll be ready to go. Let me make sure this goes. Shoot. Timeline. All right, I think that'll do it here. Let's make sure. Hey, Helen. Oh, hernia operation. I had one of those a few years ago. Not fun. Hey, Carrie, good to see you on here. All right, we got quite a few of our friends from the UK on here. We'll give this a minute to load up. So, Peter's on here, Lisa's on here, Christy's on here. Awesome. So, quick story I wanted to share with you all. And I encourage you all to jot a couple notes down. That way, if you have any questions afterwards, you can feel free to ask them. I'm happy to answer. Oops, why did that just switch? Happy to answer them. The title of today's post is called "Live Like You're Dying," and I was sitting here trying to think about. Actually, I am going to put this in one other group. I was sitting here trying to think about. I was sitting here trying to think about. Earlier, I was going over some ideas for tonight, and I have a couple different ones. But this, I was getting. Oops, damn. Hang on, sorry. This is what happens when I try to type and do this at the same time. I was going over what I wanted to talk about. And then I had the thought pop into my head of today's topic. And it seemed like it was a intuitive enough thought that I've learned over the years to trust that. And so I'm going to run with it. The source of this thought was, so live like you're dying. What does that mean? We've heard the cliche, we could die tomorrow, all those types of things. And as true as it may all be, most of us don't walk around believing that to be true. There's a great country song that if you've never heard it before, I highly encourage you to listen to it by Tim McGraw called Live Like You're Dying. And it's a really beautiful song and very inspiring one that I've often listened to it at important junctures of my life over the years. But the real source of tonight's topic that popped in my head was last year, one of my dear friends, Johnny, passed away from ALS. And if you're not familiar with ALS is Lou Gehrig's disease. It stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It's a mouthful. And essentially what ALS does, if you're not familiar with it, is it slowly and systematically basically causes your muscular system to atrophy, shuts it down. So what Johnny would often say is it turns you into a glorified jellyfish. For people who have it, there's different strands of it, and it attacks you differently. For him, it went after his muscles in his torso, his abdomen first. It went into his arms, his shoulders, extremities, so he couldn't use his hands, his arms at all. It's really, some people will go after their legs faster. Some people it goes after their ability to vocalize and whatnot. Johnny was able to still talk, which he had a hell of a gift for gab. So that was kind of the irony of it. And he was still able to be fairly mobile, but he had no use of his arms, no use of his hands. He was in pain constantly. He couldn't do the things that feed himself, dress himself, bathe himself, so on and so forth. And if you haven't watched any of the videos with John and I for about the 2 years leading up to John's passing, him and I would get together every week and we would do some interviews about life and about what his life was like since he had been living with ALS, because John wanted to raise awareness about it, but he also wanted to inspire other people with ALS or with any sort of illness to live and to live with dignity. And what was really extraordinary about John is when he was diagnosed, he reacted as you might expect somebody to react. He got angry, he got pissed off, he was scared. He began bargaining with God, wondering what he had done to deserve such a fate. And then John did something really extraordinary. He made a choice. And the choice he made was to choose to see ALS as a gift that he'd been given to, in his own words, to spread the gospel of ALS to anyone who would listen, to raise awareness about it, and to inspire others to live and to live with dignity. Now imagine that for a moment, right? Most of us, when we go through our day-to-day lives, we blame traffic, we blame not having our clothes being, we blame the dog for crapping on our lawn for the reasons why life sucks and it's unfair. Many of us will fault the economy and say that we're unable to earn enough money, we're unable to do this, we're unable to do that, and that's why life doesn't work out the way it should. Many of us will point the blame to this or that, and all the while we have full capability of our hands, our fingers, our ability to swallow, our ability to breathe, our ability to use our muscles to hug and hold our loved ones. And few of us will ever experience life actually deprived of that, nor will we even allow ourselves to go there and imagine what life would be like without that. So John, now he goes into this stage in his life where he's not able to do that. You think about the things that really give your life the deepest meaning, right? If you have a family member, a loved one, a close friend, you know how good it feels to be able to hug them and physically interact with them. And imagine taking that away. You know what it feels like to be able to feed yourself, and imagine taking that away. You know what it feels like to be able to bathe yourself, to clean yourself up after you go to the bathroom. Imagine not being able to do that, and how that would affect your life and how you might feel about your life and the day-to-day challenges you face. And imagine enduring with that and going through all that, but then making the decision that what's going on to you is this gift that you've been given. It's your mantle to pick up and to carry on and to use as something. And so what John felt pulled from this, what he extrapolated from it, was really what we would call life purpose. I often tell people life purpose is usually found in two places: the sources of our greatest pleasure and the sources of our greatest pain. In John's case, it was found in some of his greatest, if not the greatest pain. One of the most joyful moments of my life, actually probably of all time, was one day I went over to interview him, and this was probably about, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 months before he passed away. And at this point, John was no longer able to feed himself, no longer able to bathe himself. It had long been that he'd been able to have really any sort of semblance of full independence without having to need other people to help him and carry on to day-to-day things. And we're sitting down to do the interview, and he's telling me about how he had this conversation with a friend of his before. And I actually have this on camera so you can see it. So John is my witness. And he looks at me and he says, "Jesse, I don't know why, I don't know how, but the last 2 years of my life living with ALS," he said, "they've been the happiest, some of the happiest, if not the happiest of my life." Now, how's that possible? How's it possible? John was this man's man, this cowboy from Texas, for him to have these things that we normally call human dignity, these things that we normally, we're too prideful to even discuss. I mean, my God, can you imagine me even in a public forum saying I have to go to the bathroom, or somebody come and help me get dressed or something like that? Oh, you can't say those things. But here he is, and all that stuff is removed from him, and yet he's able to look you, me, and the whole world in the eye and say, these last few years have been the happiest years of my life, and mean it. Why is that? Why is it possible? And this goes into the title, Live Like We're Dying. See, so many of us, we carry around these self-imposed burdens every day. We suffer incessantly and unnecessarily because we're finding fault in how the world has turned out and how our realities turned out, because it doesn't meet the blueprint. It doesn't meet our original plan. See, in our minds, we had decided that life was supposed to unfold like this, and we were supposed to deliver X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z being maybe the health of our family, financial abundance, health for ourselves, great friends, and so on and so forth. But something happened, and that didn't quite work out that way. Now, whether it's on us or something else, whatever the case may be, but we suffer because we're angry and upset and frustrated and mad at the world for not delivering the blueprint we just subscribed to and not delivering what we were promised. And that's not to say that we're not justified in our anger, and nor is it to say that being mad is wrong. But what I would invite you to look at is, how does that serve you? How does it serve you to stew in that emotional pit and be angry and direct your energy externally about what's wrong in your life? See, what John looked at is he had all these things going on that he could really be upset, pissed off about, but then he started to get to the core of what mattered most to him. He saw that he had this opportunity in front of him. He was going to have ALS no matter what. And he could sit there and he could die being angry and upset. He could die being pissed off and vindictive. He could die moaning and groaning about how unfair it was. Or he could go out inspiring. He could go out living. That's not to say he didn't have ups and downs and challenging times. And what we've really tried to do in our videos is paint an authentic picture of the journey. There was days where he was upset, days where he was mad, days where he was angry, talked about being fearful. And I think what you saw in that time, and what I really firsthand witnessed, is you got to see a person live and have this amazing value and appreciation of what love was, what presence mattered, what presence. He had to rely on the people he was closest to be able to function, which meant he had to drop the ego that so many of us use, the wall that so many of us build up to shield ourselves from ever getting hurt. He had to drop that. He had to tear it down and allow himself to be vulnerable enough to be loved in a way he never had before. And I'm not saying romantic love. I'm saying love, human compassion, allowing other people into his life, into the most private and intimate parts of his life, to help him be able to go on living. And in doing so, what he did was he really tapped into the magic of life, the connection, the coming together, the closeness, the community. He removed ego. He removed pride. It doesn't mean he wasn't still a prideful man, because he definitely was, nor was there, doesn't mean that there wasn't a presence of ego from time to time. That's not what at all. Did with so many of the blocks, the self-imposed blocks that many of us put in our place, which inhibits us from living life as fully as possible. Most of the time, people rob themselves of experiencing life at the most deep and fulfilling level. It's because they rob themselves of doing it at the expense of what somebody else may think or feel, and what somebody else might say. They will go on and on, living their life for the approval or the acceptance of somebody else, not really going after and focusing on what matters most to them in here. We'll carry our hurts around with us, like our scarlet letters or our badges, our medals. We will carry around our pain, taking it with us from place to place, allowing that to become becoming our identity as we move forward. Rather than ever looking at and connecting with the absolute core of what matters most to us. In John's case, it was love, it was friendship, it was purpose, it was service of others. See, live like you're dying doesn't mean that you just jump off and do a bunch of bucket list things. You go skydiving, and like the song sings about skydiving and Rocky Mountain climbing, although there's some really extraordinary things and experiences that come from that. I've done each of those, so I can attest to them. And John definitely did some bucket list things. He took some really cool trips. He was traveling around, even when he wasn't able to use his hands anymore. He was still tagging along with friends, and he would go places with friends he trusted and who could help him out with going to the bathroom and things like that. But more than anything, what he found the highest value in is just connecting, being present with the people he loved and cared about. when we had his celebration of life, John didn't want a big affair, big to do. And when he finally passed, a couple of us got around and were discussing what we do. And John had said he didn't want this big affair, big to do. And finally, somebody spoke up so eloquently and said, "Oh, fuck him. He's not here anymore to decide. Let's do it because there's a lot of people that want to celebrate this man's life." And there was hundreds. I mean, I would have to guess 300-400 plus people. And that was people who I just saw inside. I think people were circulating in and out over and over again. He touched a lot of lives. Not only that, but he had people from all over the world writing into him saying what an impact he made on their life, and just a short glimpse of brief moment of time that he was a part of it through video, through his sharing, through his honesty. See, what I find time and time again with working with, this is from my work with thousands of people from all over the world, from all walks of life, from the CEOs to the librarian, from the Hollywood celebrities to the local school teacher. What I found that is consistent across humanity is the things that really matter most for us is it's not wealth, it's not the cars we drive, the homes we live in, or the amount of stamps we have in our passport. What really matters most, what people put the highest value on, is the connection. It's the impact they're making in the world. It's the love they hold in their heart. It's their ability to forgive. It's their sense of purpose. And it's their desire to fulfill that purpose each and every day. If you could learn one lesson from Johnny Aspra, it would be this. When I was over filming one day and he started asking me about what I had going on the rest of the day, I remember looking down at my clock and saying, well, I got this to do, I got this to do, da-da-da-da. And I can be pretty I like to keep my schedule pretty tight. Some days I relax on it, but most of the time I can be a little anal about it. And Johnny puts his hand up and he says, hey, Jesse, hold on a second. He said, I want you to promise me you'll always remember this. That those aren't just seconds ticking off your clock. Those are seconds ticking off your life. If you've been with me since the beginning of this, 15, 16 minutes have elapsed of your life. 15 to 16 minutes that you'll never get back. Now, I hope these have been worthwhile minutes and there's not a lot you would have rather done rather than getting it. And I'm hoping you're getting some value out of this. And hopefully that value is just being present, allowing what I'm saying to resonate with you, connect with you. Maybe you're examining your own life and what you want and your aspirations for life and a better life. If John was here, he would tell you that we're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time. And that the clock's ticking on all of our lives. To live like you're dying is to really take an introspective look at what matters most. And it's also to acknowledge the gifts that you've been given. Gift of sight, if you're able to see me right now, the gift of sound, if you're able to hear me, the gift of being able to take a deep breath and have lungs that work and allow you to inhale an oxygen. If you're able to use your fingers to log in, so many gifts that you have. And then looking at what really is on your heart the most and making your life, cutting out the bullshit, cutting out the excuses that you can't have that because, you know how many times I hear that every day? Oh, Jesse, I would love to do that, but I can't because, And it's always the same stuff over and over again. The person who tells me I can't because of money, they have $1,000 iPhone. The person tells me I can't because I don't have enough time is the one that is finding 2 hours a day to watch YouTube videos or something like that, right? So it's always those I can't because, but here's the thing. If you really put it in context, if you really looked at it in the context of if you were going to die, if you had a fine amount of time, those can'ts and becauses would disappear like that. And you would focus fully with all your heart on purpose, on connection, on service, on what matters the most to you, about love, whatever was fulfillment for you. So I encourage you all to take this idea, these concepts from Johnny and from someone who is more of an expert on it than I'll ever be. Live like you're dying. Allow the ego to drop, allow the pride, the walls of pride to come down. Reach out to the people you need to reach out to help make it happen. Connect with the people who matter most. You only got one shot at this in life. So I highly encourage you to absolutely make the most of it and make it the absolute most epic masterpiece possible. And the wise words of Forrest Gump. That's pretty much all I got to say about that. So Does anybody have any questions? Is this helpful? Is this helpful? Let's see what jumps. Questions. Oh, just a quick update too. The 2 spots for the strategy session this week got filled up. I will open up 3 for next week. So if you would like one of those, message me, let me know. I'll put the link in here too if it's helpful to you. This is for people who haven't used it before, people who are serious about engaging in some sort of coaching program. I would love to talk with you about that. Maria, yes. Oh, you're very welcome, Maria. Thank you for saying that. Yes. Awesome. Hey, Carol, good to see you on here. Hey, Bridget, good to see you on here. Tracy, what's up, Tracy? All righty then. It looks like that is a wrap for the night. I don't see any questions popping up. So any follow-up questions, if you think of something afterwards, don't hesitate to message me, put it in the comments. I'll circle back around through these. I sincerely hope, missed a few minutes, had to do something. Well, the replay will be available as soon as I click off, Heather, so you can fill in those few minutes. Yes, it was helpful. Lying here feeling sorry for myself. Don't so much now. Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate you saying that, Dylan. That's, if we can shift like that, because remember, and that's something to really consider too. You just went through a surgery, and I've had a hernia surgery before, so I can appreciate how it might feel. And if I could give you one piece of unsolicited advice, it would be that we can sit there and feel sorry for ourselves about what we can't do in the moment, or we can celebrate the opportunity that we have to heal. We can be grateful for that we can feel the pain, that we're alive and we're present enough to feel pain. I know that a lot of times pain is we don't want to feel pain, we avoid pain, but here's the gift of pain. Is the gift of pain, the pain's presence reminds us that we're alive. It's when we don't feel pain anymore that we're not, or that we've proverbially become almost dead inside. And one thing that I try to ascribe more and more for myself is to celebrate pain. The presence of pain it's there for a reason, and it's there to remind you how alive you are, your capacity to feel. Emotional pain is often there to remind us how deeply we can love, how deeply we can feel. And all of that is energy, right? And so remember that we have the ability to direct that to something else. So I think sometimes when we're laid up and we're recovering from injuries, it's the best time to get caught up on our reading, get clear on our mind, work on ourselves, develop our businesses, rekindle connections with friends that we've fallen out of touch with, make amends, ask for forgiveness, and a whole bunch of other stuff too. So thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad that you were able to feel a shift with this. And I will be back on here at some point tomorrow. I'm not quite sure what time it is, but we'll be back for regular times next Monday. Questions, send us over. Three spots next week for a strategy session with me. This is only for people who are serious about integrating coaching in their life. And if we haven't talked before, I'm looking at the screenshot. The screen's frozen on one of my screens, and it's not a very flattering look at me. It looks like I'm in the mid that I got to fart really bad or something like that. So I better log off before we get too many more locked up. So sending lots of love to you all, wherever you are, whether it's morning, noon, or night. Thank you so much for being here. I wish you an amazing rest of your day. And remember, carpe diem, seize the moment, seize your day, make the most of it, live like you're dying. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.